Hello all you lovely viewers there, and welcome back to another Switchera review. Today we're taking a look at Sky Rogue from Fractal Phase on the Nintendo Switch. Some of the fondest memories I have as a child are when my parents would take me to the arcade and I could get in those massive machines where it would feel like I was an actual pilot or race car driver using a realistic set of controls to get the highest score possible. Unfortunately, that's a type of experience that's dying out. That's where Sky Rogue enters the picture. This game puts you in the pilot's chair as you are assigned various missions that will entail dogfights, bombing runs, and aileron rolls. Featuring a simplistic art style and game structure, it hopes to recapture the magic of playing games at the arcade. Does it succeed? Sky Rogue wastes no time throwing you into the action. After going through a brief yet effective tutorial, you're immediately thrust into your first mission. From the opening moments, it's clear how the game plays out. It's separated into levels, with each having a random target that you must destroy, while avoiding other hazards like enemy drones or anti-air guns. While you're flying through the sky, there are many buildings and a few enemies on the ground that you have the option to destroy. You can end the level once you destroy the target, and immediately fly into your ship that looks strangely like a helicarrier from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Or, you can just destroy everything in sight and get more money for your effort. This cash can then be spent on upgrades in between each level to buff up your ship as the game starts to get significantly harder. While clearing the levels of all objects isn't the most fun thing to do in the game, the money is well worth it when you're fighting 10-20 drones at a time. The way the game is set up, each level is randomized with a different objective and different enemies to fight. Obviously, it's a roguelike. You'll be doing runs through several levels. Die once and you have to start all the way back at the beginning. What makes it worse is that the game taunts you by having a progress bar that goes up every time you finish a level, making me extremely curious about the end. That said, I never did see it because the game really does put up a fight the farther you get into it. I have to be honest, there are pros and cons with this approach. On the one hand, I do like the variation that Sky Rogue has in its levels, and I like the challenge of trying to get all the way to the very end. On the other hand, there isn't enough variety with the enemies to truly justify having a randomized approach. On top of that, because this is based on an arcade game, if you run into something, you're immediately dead and you have to start over, regardless of the upgrades that you have. With my main criticisms of the game out of the way, I have to take the time to praise how well Sky Rogue controls. Fractal Phase managed to capture the feeling of flying an airplane like you would in a classic arcade game very well. The controls are intuitive and they respond extremely well, much better than most games that try to do the same thing. Switching through 4 weapons at a time can get irritating when it's all mapped to the same button, but that's a minor complaint when it feels so good to just fly around and engage in dogfights. For the Nintendo Switch version, Fractal Phase also managed to add in motion controls that can be used with split Joy-Con. I have to say, I was impressed with how well it worked and how smartly it was designed. While it won't replace using a controller and certainly puts you at a disadvantage, there's a lot of novelty with how the motion controls work that I think a lot of people will enjoy for a time. On top of the standard mode, Sky Rogue includes a free flight, endless, and multiplayer mode. The first two are just everything that you'd expect, but it's the multiplayer that really blew me away. The game suddenly doesn't seem so repetitive when you're flying around with a partner. When I played with my dad, he would tackle the objective while I would shoot down the bogeys that tried to destroy his ship. There's a level of communication needed to play the game with another person, and that allowed the multiplayer to be surprisingly strong for me. On a final note, Sky Rogue is lovely imitating games from the arcade, but it doesn't just do that in its control scheme and simple playstyle. It also has the graphics and sound design to back it up. The graphics are filled with saturated colors and intentional polygonal models. It's not a visually astounding game, but the art style is very pleasing to the eye. When discussing the sound, Fractal Phase knocked it out of the park there as well. The music, while reused for each few sets of levels, was quite catchy and fit the game perfectly. If you decide to get the soundtrack for this one, you definitely won't be disappointed. Sky Rogue is a game that lovingly recreates what made arcade flight simulators so fun back in the day. It has a stellar control scheme and an excellent structure to back it up. While it could use some more variation and the roguelike style doesn't completely help it, those complaints are white noise when you start taking part in aerial battles, dodging missiles, and becoming the master of the skies. That's why we are giving Sky Rogue an 8.5 out of 10.